West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
When 87-year-old Lydia Martinez woke up before 6 a.m. to the sound of a knock on her door last week, she assumed it was perhaps a neighbor who needed milk or eggs. But to her surprise, it wasn't a neighbor, rather 9 officers, most of them men, pushing through her front door. Some had riot shields and guns in their holsters. The officers presented a search warrant and questioned her for 3 hours. At one point, they even had the great-grandmother stand outside in her nightgown. According to their warrant, officers were looking for records including applications for ballot by mail, a list of voter banks, and documents about elected officials and candidates. Martinez said the officers told her they were there because she had filled out a report saying that older residents were not getting mail ballots. That's quite an aggressive response to that report, which she confirms she actually did file. Martinez is a retired educator in San Antonio who had spent 35 years as a member and volunteer with LULAC, the oldest Latino civil rights group in America. Part of her work with that organization includes helping older residents and veterans register to vote. And that's apparently what made her suspicious to Republican Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. On Monday, Martinez and other LULAC leaders held a news conference outside of Paxton's office in San Antonio.
They took my laptop, my appointment book. I don't know when I have an appointment with my doctors. They took my cell phone. They took all the information that I had. I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and they don't want me involved in this anymore. They're scared that I'm going to be in prison. And I said, they can't. I'm not doing anything illegal.
Martinez was just one target of raids on several Latino Democrats and LULAC members in South Texas. They are all part of a 2-year investigation into alleged election fraud and vote harvesting conducted by Paxton's Election Integrity Unit. That's the same unit that was created in the wake of Donald Trump's fake election claims during the 2020 presidential election. Now, of course, no charges have been filed against those who have had their homes searched this month. So, what does this new stunt by Paxton actually achieve besides fueling fear? His raids left his targets shaken up and scared, and outside the Latino community, they push a false narrative about non-citizens supposedly voting illegally. The Texas Attorney General has been eager to advance this baseless claim about voter fraud throughout his career. On a radio show earlier this month, he said, quote, "There's a reason Joe Biden brought people here illegally. I'm convinced that's how they're going to do it. This time, they're going to use the illegal vote." And to be clear here, absolutely clear, U.S. law already bans non-citizens from voting in federal elections. And as election officials and experts have repeatedly said to us, there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud in Texas or this country at large. You know what is true, though? Texas's long history of discrimination against its citizens of Mexican descent. It's actually why the historic Latino Civil Rights Organization came together in the first place back in 1929. As you can imagine, these raids felt deeply personal to LULAC's leaders and members. The group's national president, Roman Palomares, called them, quote, point-blank voter intimidation. And now LULAC has turned the tables on Paxton by calling on the Justice Department to investigate the investigator. You know, the one desperately searching for voter fraud and for potentially violating the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Joining me now to discuss this and more is LULAC CEO Juan Proaño. Juan, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making time for us. So just walk me through what has happened since that incident with Ms. Martinez. Has there been any more insight into what they were trying to achieve, what they plan on doing, and have her possessions been returned to her?
Number one, her possessions have not been returned to her. We've got a lot more information relative to the other warrants that were served to victims. To our best knowledge, there are about 12 of them. We've spoken with 5. 4 of those are LULAC members. We have sent a letter to the Department of Justice asking for an inquiry, and we will be meeting with them as early as next week to actually provide them with all of the information that we have relative to this case.
What do you want the Department of Justice to do in this inquiry? I assume they haven't responded to you yet. They'll perhaps respond to you in person when you meet with them. But what is it that you're seeking from the Department of Justice?
Well, we want an investigation, I think, both on the civil justice side, but also on the criminal side as well. You know, we believe that Lydia Martinez's civil rights have actually been violated, and so we want them to investigate that.
I was going to say, Ken Paxton seems to have launched, kind of an attack now on organizations in Texas. And if you're an outside observer, you can say with some degree of confidence, this has the hallmarks of voter intimidation. When you're targeting groups and trying to undercut their ability to vote freely and fairly and feel confident in their vote, you're doing a great disservice to our democracy. How do you fight that? How do you counter that? How do you get these organizations to mobilize in this tactic?
Well, first and foremost, there's a pattern here, right? You know, we've been talking about the raids for the last week, but if you go back to June, he actually filed a lawsuit against the Catholic Charities of Rio Grande Valley, Sister Norma Pimentel. In July, he also filed suit against Annunciation House, which provides respite services for immigrants in the United States. And all those nonprofit organizations and all those Latino leaders, civic leaders, LULAC members are all Latino. So there's no question that he is targeting the Latino community. One of the things that we're doing in our response is that our response will not be only a Latino response. We're working with the NAACP, met yesterday with Derek Johnson, with Mark Morial from the Urban League, with Maya Wiley from the Leadership Conference, with Hector Barba from Mi Familia Vota. So our response will be one of the civil rights community, fully intersectional, taking into account Hispanics, African American, and the Asian community as well.
Let me share with you something that the governor has been doing, Greg Abbott. He purged 1 million people from the state's voter roll, saying that illegal voting in Texas will not be tolerated. But the majority of voters, data shows that were removed from the rolls either passed away or failed to respond to notices from election officials or just moved out of Texas. Do you believe there is a concerted effort to fearmonger right now ahead of the election and create this sense of intimidation?
You know, I think he actually put that out because he put that out last Friday as number one, a way to deflect from the story, this negative story that has impacted his administration and Paxton. But in addition to that, it actually really undercuts their argument of systemic voter fraud and voter harvesting. 6,500 of those persons actually removed from the voter roll were defined as non-citizens.
Right.
6,500 of 1.1 million records is less than 0.5%.
Yeah.
1,900 of those 6,500 actually had voting history. So you're talking about less than 1/1,000% of the people that were on those voter rolls are non-citizens, immigrants, if you will. That's not
statistically insignificant.
Systemic voter fraud. That is not systemic voter harvesting. It undercuts their entire argument. What I'm concerned about is that he gave those 1,900 records, literally handed them over to Paxton, And our expectation is he's going to go after them. He's looking for the living embodiment, and he's going to arrest someone on those 1900.
Let me just ask you really quickly, and we're almost out of time, but why do you think they are so afraid of Latinos in Texas? Why do you think there is such a concerted effort to go after this kind of like invisible boogeyman?
Well, it's not invisible. There's 12.1 million Latinos in Texas. Latinos are 40% of the population. It's actually greater than the 12 million non-Hispanic whites that live in the state. And when you take into account Hispanics, African Americans, and Asians, that's 60% of the population. Texas is and has been a majority-minority state for some time. This is their way to stay in power, not just to keep control of the state, but there are districts and 50-50 districts that are changing dramatically because of these demographics.
It is Tuesday, the 3rd of September of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, our little Yorkie, is the door girl. And I should remind folks she's semi-retired and is out and about at the moment. So we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It always has, and it always will. Well, I'll give you a quick update on Precious. I had my granddaughter and, well, my ex, we're friends, as you know. They came and house sat, took care of the dogs, while I attended our father's military funeral at the Riverside Veteran Cemetery in Riverside, California. So, she's still doing okay. She seemed a little tuckered out yesterday. I think it was a long week for her. I did by Dr. Dickey, our vet's suggestion, leave a couple smelly shirts on my bed for her, and that's exactly the right thing to have done. Carol and Talia both said that she would climb up on the bed. I have steps to get up onto various pieces of furniture for her. But anyway, she would climb up on the bed and wrap herself up in the smelly shirt. And she was so happy to see me too. She was up on her hind legs doing her little front paw wave. It's so cute. She's such a tiny thing. But she was a bit tuckered out yesterday. I think that it was quite a long week for her. Last night I kind of was a bit worried about her. She would just like plop down in the middle of the floor and just was like, she was asleep. So I picked her up when it became my bedtime and put her on the bed. And she slept right next to me for quite a while, and at some point crawled down on her own. And I got to tell you, that's always a good sign. And when I awoke this morning at 5 a.m. West Coast time, she was up too. And that's a good sign. So for now, I guess we're okay. There's some other issues in terms of her care that I'm now having to take more care for. And part of that, I'm sorry, I know it's the morning, but she is aging quickly, and I am now having to clean up her behind for her a little bit better than she's able to do herself. And got to get some Neosporin down there because, it's like a bed sore. You got to be careful, even with little doggies. Little Yorkshire Terriers. So we're at that point, and it's just, sad. Anyway, then we did have the military service for our father, and that was quite something. Had a hella long procession of cars that went from the staging area that they have you at, and then they take you to it's not necessarily the site at which he will be interred, but the site where we have the service. And there had to have been 60 cars with no less than 2 people per car. And I got to tell you, most of the cars were filled with 4 or more, depending if it was an SUV. And it was mostly more. I think there's only a couple of folks that just came as a couple, because a lot of people came, they carpooled because it's Southern California, and a lot of people came from the coastal communities of Orange County to drive all the way across the Southland to drive up the hill. Well, not actually up the hill, but to get to Riverside. Driving up the hill is to get to Victorville, where I was staying, because I was close to my sister down there and my niece, her daughter. So it was quite a event, very solemn and crisp and clean. The folding of the flag was a good reminder of, well, protocol and tradition. And my dad's colleagues came and were well represented. They were part of this at least 60-car procession to get to the service area. So I thought that was quite a telling story about how people felt about our father, and I appreciated that. One of his colleagues, Tom Rines, longtime professor at Cal State Fullerton as well, gave a little talk. And now Tom Rines, I don't know if he would be MAGA, but Tom Rines was always conservative, and my father, as you would suspect, is not. But Tom Rines considered my father to be his best friend. Yeah, they would argue. My dad was not one to yell. One great compliment is Tom Rines and others commented on the world-class mind our father had in terms of scholastics and academe. Great compliments, not just given out because of the moment, but truly heartfelt and true. But Tom Rines reminded me of a time when we could actually disagree, because I used to have pretty heated discussions with old Tom when I was a kid. I've known him since I was a kid. Well, at least since junior high school, early high school, because he came on board a bit later. But anyway, they were best friends, completely opposite ends of the political spectrum, but it didn't matter. Because it's not just politics that they talked about. Sure, as Tom said, they talked a lot about politics. But there were other things that were of interest, especially to scholars such as they. It was a reminder of how we could find common grounds to get along with our neighbors, because what the hell, we're Americans. Okay? I don't like the way you voted. Here, have some potluck. Okay? So, I thought that was a grand moment, indeed. I gave a little presentation. Now, I have to say I wasn't prepared, because I didn't think there would be any time. I thought that this is the thing, they had 45 other services to take care of that day. So it was moving with military precision, right down to, I would say, even less than the minute. Almost the same type of time considerations we have here at Netroots Radio. Mm-hmm. When we're running this station, bars it down to seconds. So I just wasn't expecting to have enough time to be able to give a talk. And my brother, our MAGA bro, didn't deem it apparently important enough, or there was too many, family issues for him to want to show up to our dad's military service. And this is a guy who says, that Kaepernick, he should be thrown out of the country. He disrespected the military, when he did not do anything of the sort. He disrespected the flag. No, he took a knee like they do in the military. Since you know so much about the military, guys never even thought he could come close to anything like that. Certainly a great, Well, I'm an advocate of the military, if done right. But I'm not going to give I don't know, FaceTime to it without the true consideration of what it means. So, family dynamics are weird, I gotta say. My sister and I, my sister who's a year younger than I, we excelled. We worked hard. And my younger brother and sister were not so, shall we say, academically inclined. Now, I try not to be too judgmental about that, and have tried to avoid being judgmental about that over all these many years. But when my MAGA bro becomes my MAGA bro, and you couldn't talk to the kid at all at any point in his upbringing, and he's 5 years younger than me too. You know, I was in a totally different peer group. He was the baby. Anyway, he had sent something to be read, and it was first going to be by his son, but it turned out to be the oldest daughter, which would be the oldest. Actually, now that I think about it, Lindsay is the oldest kid. So anyway, she should have been doing it anyway. But my sister had read it beforehand and advised Lindsay that she needed to clean it up because it was saying a lot of bad things about her mom. Now, I'm going to say family dynamics are weird, but I'm only bringing it up because of the corrosiveness of MAGA, what it does to our communities, what it does to our families, and what it does to the individuals involved, especially if you have any care for them, and even if you don't. So, oh no. Oh. Anyway, I don't know what I was just looking at. Anyway, he sent a little thing that he had written apparently back in 1987. So he would have been, maybe just out of high school and stuff, I guess. Oh, yeah, he would have been quite a bit out of high school. Anyway, Lindsay had to clean it up a bit. And it was also another reminder that some of the kids who are in their 40s really don't know the family history. They don't know the kinds of more tragic parts of our upbringing because I guess we just didn't bring it up. Maybe we should have. So, even though it was cleaned up, there was a few misconceptions or misunderstandings on my brother's part, certainly about timeline. And like I said, he was the baby. Okay. Everybody has a memory, and it may not hew to the actual facts. And that would be including my own recollections, I have to make clear. But where I like to think that maybe I might have a leg up, is that I kept a journal. So I could remind myself of what I was thinking at the time and what was going on at the time. My journals were an almanac too. So regardless, I was able to remind myself a little bit about past events, and I gave a little talk. And unbeknownst to me, my sister Zona, you're younger than me, who she filmed it and recorded it on her phone. So that was very sweet of her to do. I started looking at it, but I don't know. I'm at this point where usually when I make a recording or a performance, it's in the bag. I don't look at it anymore. I used to do it a lot when I started off way back in my 20s. Like if there was a recording, a video record of a gig that we did, I'd always like to look at it and stuff. Now I'm not so intrigued, compelled. But I'll look at it at some point. We all wore yellow because that was my dad's favorite color. We had yellow in our wardrobe, and so that was kind of neat seeing all the yellow. Anyway, just in terms of family dynamics, there's also a reminder of that not everybody knows the most basic aspects of American tradition. So, I guess it turns out, I already knew this. I sat there confused a tad. But our younger sister somehow got the flag and the ceremonial bullet casings that were used in the gun salute when it should have been me. There is no spouse, there's no brother or sister of our father alive. So next in line would be the oldest child, not the oldest son, oldest child. But somehow, I don't know. I don't want to make a big thing about it. I only make a big thing about it is because, there should be a sharing of these mementos. And I thought that would be the case, that each of us would get a bullet casing or two. And the flag would be put in its proper case and displayed with all the other flags that I hold, because I'm the repository, the conservator of the family heirlooms. So I don't know. Like I said, family dynamics. I guess they think that I'm going to hoard everything, and which I've never done. That's my MAGA brother. He would do that. So anyway, there's a little bit of a dynamic going on, I guess, now, since I have become, by default, the patriarch of the family. I'm part of the patriarchy. I'm not only part of it, I am. Well, my sister is the matriarch of the family now, so there. But I'm the oldest, and by default, and by sense of duty, responsibility, and unconditional love, I am the protector of my siblings and of the family tradition and its legacy. In some ways, I have to be the curator of my dad's work. See, he's got great curators already, but they are all fairly elderly in their own right now, as if I'm not. But I'm a lot younger than they are. And my dad's works have been very important to me. So, it's just a little, well, it's telling when you find out aspects about your siblings that maybe you've avoided all these many years because you didn't want to think bad thoughts about your family, especially all that we went through. Okay, I don't want to say that they're all bad kids. They're not. But the material rather than the spiritual in this instance is taking much, much more precedent, when I think that the spiritual should be at least acknowledged for a little bit longer. Am I a romantic? Damn right I am. Okay, we better give you a rundown on what we're going to have in store for you, since time's a-ticking. And so what do we have in store for you? I hate Ken Paxton. I know we did a bit of work on him last week, but it's been a while since we've been back. And since the Midas Touch guys just did this yesterday, their clip, I thought it would still be timely to bring up about his raids on the Latino communities, registering folks to vote. Oh, it's illegal to register people to vote. Oh, really? Are you a Nazi? Yes, he is. On the rest of the menu, California lawmakers approved legislation to ban deep fakes, protect workers, and regulate AI, artificial intelligence. So I'm sure the Republicans are going to be against it, aren't they all? A Republican state representative, in Central Florida has been indicted on felony forgery charges related to her administration of her private family-owned Christian school. Felony forgery. Okay. And the Arlington Cemetery controversy has shined a spotlight on Utah Governor Spencer Cox's sudden and bewildering embrace of Trump. We got to talk to J.M. Bell about that sometime. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a Russian newspaper publisher was convicted by a court in Siberia and sentenced to 8 years in prison after his paper reported on Russia's attacks on civilians in Ukraine. And a 23-year-old woman who posted a video of herself singing outdoors in Afghanistan to protest the Taliban's morality laws, which include a ban on women's voices in public, said she won't be silenced. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Before we tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, just a quick reminder to follow me on social media at Justice Putnam, and you'll have quick access to the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's, in which you can then read these full articles in their totality if you want a little redundancy in your morning, and you will. Alrighty, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, is out of the Associated Press by Tran Nguyen. California lawmakers approved a host of proposals aiming to regulate the artificial intelligence industry, combat deepfakes, and protect workers from exploitation by the rapidly evolving technology. The California legislature, which is controlled by Democrats, I think it's Democratic. You can figure out how to put it in, but that's just me. And the Netroots Radio Style Manual, so there. Back to the article at hand. Well, they are voting on hundreds of bills during its final week of the session to send to Governor Gavin Newsom's desk. And their deadline is this Saturday. The Democratic governor has until September 30th then to sign the proposals, veto them, or let them become law without his signature. Newsom signaled in July he will sign a proposal to crack down on election deepfakes, but has not weighed in on other legislation. He warned earlier this summer that overregulation could hurt the homegrown industry. In recent years, he has often cited the state budget troubles when rejecting legislation that he would otherwise support. Well, here's a look at some of the AI bills lawmakers approved this year. The one combating deep fakes, citing concerns over how AI tools are increasingly used to trick voters and generate deep fake pornography of minors. I wouldn't say it's just limited to minors, but that's pretty bad. California lawmakers approved several bills this last week to crack down on the practice. Lawmakers approved legislation to ban deepfakes related to elections and require large social media platforms to remove the deceptive material 120 days before Election Day and 60 days thereafter. Campaigns also would be required to publicly disclose if they're running ads with materials altered by artificial intelligence. Kate Payne at the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as lawn machinery is droning in the background. We apologize. A Republican state representative in Central Florida has been indicted on felony forgery charges related to her administration of a private Christian school that she helps run with her family. Carolina Amnesty, age 29, turned herself in to authorities at the Orange County Jail last Thursday and was booked on 4 felony counts. That is, after a grand jury found that Amnesty forged a man's signature on a document that she notarized in 2021 while working as an administrator at her family's Central Christian Academy, according to State Attorney Andrew Bain. The forgery happened before Amnesty was elected to the Florida House of Representatives. Each of the charges are third-degree felonies, punishable by up to 5 years in prison and $5,000 in fines for each. The indictment of Amnesty, who is currently running for re-election in her district west of Orlando, follows investigations by the Orlando Sentinel into Amnesty's background, financial practices, and role in the family-run school. Reached by phone, she declined to answer any questions from the AP, but pointed to a statement posted on Twitter.
This prosecution, initiated just a few weeks prior to absentee ballots being dropped, is based on misleading reports from a partisan newspaper about a notarization of an employee verification background report,
reads the statement from Amnesty's campaign in an accent totally made up on the spot.
Representative Amnesty calls for a speedy trial, looks forward to her day in court, and is confident of her public vindication.
First elected to the Florida House in 2022, Amnesty touted herself as a successful businesswoman and staunch supporter of former President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Well, looks like she's in the right group. Baum of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. While it is actually a wood chipper and tree trimmers out there making all this noise, I really apologize for the terrible audio today. We'll clean it up later tomorrow. All right. A few months ago, Utah Governor Spencer Cox was one of the few prominent Republicans consistently keeping his distance from Trump, whose brash style seemed to be the antithesis of a brand of politics Cox had carefully cultivated that centered on unity and respect. Cox did not vote for Trump in 2016 or 2020 and told CNN in July that he would not vote for him this year. The governor said the then-president's role in inciting the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol went too far. Days later, after an assassination attempt, was it, on Trump at a Pennsylvania rally, Cox changed his mind. He sent a letter to Trump explaining that his defiant response at the moment of the shooting had spurred a sudden reassessment and switch for Cox. His turnabout bewildered political observers who, for the past decade, have watched Cox methodically build a persona as a moderate in the manner of Mitt Romney, the Utah senator who was the Republican presidential nominee in 2012, while he climbed the ranks of the state leadership. Cox, age 49, said in his note that he believed Trump could save the country by emphasizing unity rather than hate. Does this guy know who he was writing to? You probably don't like me much, Cox wrote, but I want you to know that I pledge my support. Trump has not, in turn, endorsed Cox for re-election. The pair's puzzling relationship was thrust into the spotlight again this week when they put themselves at the center of a controversy at Arlington National Cemetery. After Trump's staff had an altercation with a cemetery official, Cox broke rules and likely federal law in using a graveside photo with Trump in a campaign fundraising email. Now, we all know federal law prohibits campaign or election-related activities within the Army's national cemeteries, and officials at Arlington said that rule had been shared widely before Monday's ceremony, honoring 13 service members, including one from Utah, who died in an airport bombing during the Afghanistan withdrawal 3 years ago. Cox's campaign issued a swift apology for politicizing the event, and Trump has insisted he had permission to film in a restricted area. Well, he didn't. Let us now go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today on a very delayed Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We apologize for that, too. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey, kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government buy-in for the people. Amendment 6, a repeal of Florida's public funding of elections option, faces voters on November 5th. Such small donor matching systems help candidates outside the political machine structure to compete and can help limit special interest influence. Voters passed a 1998 constitutional amendment creating a method of public financing for campaigns for statewide office, and affirmed it again in 2010. Gubernatorial candidates must raise $150,000 in $250 amounts, which the state matches 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 above the threshold. The matching threshold for cabinet candidates is $100,000. Taking public money also requires adherence to spending limits, which in 2022 were over $30.28 million for governor and lieutenant governor, about $2 per registered voter. For attorney general and other cabinet offices, the cost was about $1 per voter. The Miami Herald reports that since 2010, $33 million in matching campaign funding has been spent. Amy Keith of Common Cause Florida said in a March statement, "Let's be clear, seeking to repeal laws that address this issue of special interests and big campaign donors is a step backwards. It silences the voices of everyday Floridians and gives favor to the wealthy to corrupt our politics." Find out more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1928. 300 musicians working in Chicago went on strike against 250 movie theaters. They were protesting their impending replacement by talking pictures. This was part of a nationwide wave of protests by the American Federation of Musicians. The union had amassed $1.5 million to fight laying off musicians who played at the movies. From the inception of cinema, Thomas Edison had hoped to merge sound and film. Since this did not happen in the early days of movies, the films used intertitles and had musical accompaniment. This music ranged from an orchestra in the large urban theaters to a single piano player in smaller theaters. Across the country, 75,000 musicians worked in movie theaters. This live music played an essential role in setting the mood of the film, building dramatic tension, and enhancing the movie-going experience. However, there was considerable difficulty matching other sound to film visuals. Western Electric and Bell Telephone produced the first commercially viable movie sound system. It hooked up a very large phonograph to a film projector. This was first used in the film Don Juan in 1926. But the next year, in October of 1927, the opening of the Al Jolson film The Jazz Singer marked the introduction of the first successful talking picture. Talking pictures were a boom to many comedic vaudevillian performers such as Jack Benny and the Marx Brothers, who could now translate their comedy onto film. As a result, musicians, members of the American Federation of Musicians, were no longer needed to provide musical accompaniment. By the end of 1928, nearly 2,000 theater musicians in the U.S. were unemployed. By 1929, nearly half of the nation's movie theaters had converted to sound. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the mid to upper 90s, with the rest of the week being around 105 or so. How nice. Sunny conditions throughout the day, winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Fortunately, our lows tonight will be under clear skies with that low near 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then, as I mentioned, mainly sunny tomorrow with highs near 105, winds light and variable. And it looks like tomorrow night's going to be around 60. We'll hope it's a little cooler than that. Looks like there's no pollen rated out there in Rogue River proper, though I have been sneezing and I had to put the mute button on a couple of times. So there. The air quality index, though, is in the good range at 15 parts per million. That's very sweet. And that daytime UV index has notched down into the moderate range at level 5, so we're continuing our trek into fall. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.12 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 88%. Oh, sticky. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 70 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 71 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 68 with thunderstorms and a thunderstorm advisory that could cause electrical disruptions, so take care if you are there. Kabul is 71 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 89 and clear. Tokyo is 75 and mostly cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 51 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 63 and fair. Chicago, Illinois is 68 degrees and sunny, and New York, New York is 71 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A Russian newspaper publisher was convicted by a court in Siberia and sentenced to 8 years in prison after his paper reported on Russia's attacks on civilians in Ukraine. Local media and rights activists reported the court in the city of Gorno-Altaysk convicted Sergei Mikhailov, a prominent journalist in the Siberian region of Altai, and the publisher of the local newspaper Listok, or leaflet in Russian, of spreading false information about the Russian army. Under a new law adopted days after Moscow invaded Ukraine in February of 2022, well, it seems like it's getting to be an old law now. It has become a criminal offense in Russia to criticize the war. Wow, coming to an America near you if you know who takes over. Don't let them. Hundreds of Russians, including multiple journalists, have been prosecuted under the law in a government crackdown of unprecedented scale and harshness. One of Russia's leading rights groups that tracks political arrests, OVD Info, reported that more than 1,000 people have been implicated in criminal cases over their anti-war stance since February of 2022. Mikhailov was arrested in April last year over a series of posts on Listok's social media pages and a story on Listok's website that reported on Russia's attacks on civilians in Ukraine. He has vehemently rejected the charges, the groups have said. Russia's independent news outlet, Meduza, quoted Mikhailov as telling the court in his closing statement that the purpose of the publications is to reveal to my fellow countrymen the truth about the war and to protect them from the sophisticated lies of Russian state propaganda. All these years, I've been writing what I consider to be the truth, albeit bitter, Mikhailov said, according to Meduza. Ever more staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A woman who posted a video of herself singing outdoors in Afghanistan to protest the Taliban's morality laws, which include a ban on women's voices in public, said that she won't be silenced. The 23-year-old graduate is from the northeastern province of Badakhshan and only gave her last name, Effet, to avoid reprisals. No command, system, or man can close the mouth of an Afghan woman, she told the AP. If you close one part of the body of an Afghan woman, another part will work. The Taliban last week issued the country's first set of laws to prevent vice and promote virtue. They include a requirement for women to conceal her face, body, and voice outside the home. The laws have triggered widespread condemnation and accusations that the Taliban are erasing women from public life and granting broad powers to enforcers from the Vice and Virtue Ministry. The Taliban reject the accusations. Afghan women, both inside and outside the country, have posted videos of themselves singing in protest at the new laws. Effett's face is barely visible in the 39-second video, which was recorded by her older sister and posted to social media last Tuesday. She wears a dark top, a light blue scarf, and sunglasses. She sings outdoors, an act prohibited under the new laws. The song that she chose was chosen because of its message of defiance, protest, and strength. I am not that weak willow that trembles in every wind. I am from Afghanistan. I remember that day when I opened the cage. I took my head out of the cage and sang drunkenly. At the end of the video, she says, "A woman's voice is not intimate." And that is a direct reference to the Taliban laws and what they say are the reason for a woman's voice to be concealed outside the home. All right, well, I guess everything's tempting if you want it to be. Well, that does bring us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.